There's no escape.
He's closer than you think.
Check 1, 2. Hey everyone, Kyle McLeod here, checking in on another glorious backcountry adventure. I should mention, this hike is not for the weary, so I recommend only intermediate to advanced levels tackle this route. My brother used to tell me stories about this place. Supposedly one summer, forever ago, a kid by the name of Jason Voorhees drowned in that lake. The cops searched for days, but his body was never discovered. The kid's mom, who was also the camp's cook, blamed the counselors for her son's death. And one night she went crazy, killing almost everyone before getting her own head chopped off by the only survivor. Or some shit like that. I don't really know. This is stupid, but... Man, that story used to scare the shit out of me. You know, now that I'm here and I get to see this place in person, I kind of feel sorry for it. All because of some stupid ghost story. Well, I ain't afraid of no ghost.
I found Camp Crystal Lake. Everything, all the stories are true.
Don't worry. You're okay. Everything's gonna be okay now. You're in good hands. Right, Axel?
Hey, didn't anyone ever tell you you should never hike alone? Oh, god damn. Look at the beard on that vagina. Woo.
Remember me, asshole? Hang on, kid!
I have the unfortunate duty of letting you know that your son is missing.
You're making a big mistake, Sheriff.
Hi, this is Adrienne King, Alice from Friday the 13th, and the Hysteria continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to the Hysteria Continues, episode 222, and which sounds a bit like cha-cha-cha or ha-ha-ha. Yes, it's almost, or is, I don't know if it's going to be Friday the 13th by the time this comes out, but it certainly is Friday the 13th. So as ever, we try and celebrate all things Crystal Lake and Jason and Pammy Voorhees on Friday the 13th. So this time is no different, although we have, as if you listen to the show, you'll know, we have run out of official Friday the 13th films because they haven't made any for a decade. And we'll be discussing perhaps why, but that doesn't mean people kind of for want of Friday the 13th movies, because there is a whole plethora. If you get access to YouTube, which I'm sure you have, then you can't move for tripping over twigs and Friday the 13th fan movies. So we'll be covering two of those, which is Never Hike Alone and Never Hike in the Snow, which is the prequel to that movie. Also maybe touching on some of the other fan films that some of us may have seen. In fact, actually, I've been on a bit of a Friday the 13th fan binge this weekend, sort of catching up with some of the others. And I was quite surprised. But before we do that, let's see how we're all doing. So, Erik, how are you doing on this Friday the 13th?
I am doing excellent. I got some wonderful news yesterday around 4:00, but I won't bother you about that. So I'm really, really happy. But yeah, doing good.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear. We all have it's a bit of a spring in our step anyway. So Nathan, how are you doing?
I am doing very classy today, Justin.
Well, of course. Well, actually, of course, we this is the follow-up to the infamous, which has now gone down.
Oh, is this the first episode since the Drunkcast? Yeah.
It's in the annals of history.
The Nathonian.
The Nathonian has gone down, not like a lead balloon. In fact, quite the opposite, up like a helium balloon. So I think we got some feedback. We're dissecting some of that. But yes, the Drunkcast, I think there was a couple of people who said, please God, never again. But for the most part, I think it was a welcome diversion for these uncertain times.
Well, the next time I plan to start drinking when we start the episode, not before. I don't know what got into my brain. I was probably just high.
And how did you feel the next morning, Nathan?
I felt okay, but only because luckily I had Wes and he had me take some headache medicine and drink a lot of water after the show before I actually fell asleep. So the next morning, I was a little dehydrated, but that was about it.
Okay.
Right. Well, I'm sure we'll talk. We have some feedback for later in the show, which I think may touch upon the how classy that episode was. But Joseph, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing very, very, very well, Justin. I am ready to do a very dignified episode, a very graceful episode.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear it. So, yeah, well, we are covering the some Friday the 13th fan movies, and I'm sure we'll talk about the Friday the 13th universe and all things Crystal Lake coming up. But before we do, we haven't recorded since, the hangovers have dissipated. So I think we are all fully recovered. So, yeah, well, let's see what we've been watching recently. So, Joseph, have you seen anything you want to tell us about?
Yeah, the only thing I've watched recently was Unhinged, which was the Russell Crowe starring thriller. And I dismissed this as some sort of Oscar bait kind of drama. And then when you told me it was like this, road rage from hell film, I was all in. And boy, I really enjoyed this movie. It is a supremely excellent white knuckle thriller. It's completely absurd, but I mean, it just doesn't let up. I mean, it's like 86 minutes long, and there's never, it never stops. There's no stop signs, there's no red lights. I mean, it barrels forward at, full capacity. So I really enjoyed this film. It's basically about, a road rage incident that just gets turned up to 11. Thumbs way up for me.
Nathan, did you catch it as well?
I did, and I enjoyed it very, very much. Like Joseph said, once it gets started, it doesn't let up. And there are some pretty shocking moments in the movie where I didn't expect, what was about to happen. And I thought that the cast did really well. And Russell Crowe especially is just really great in this role. I don't want to say too much about it because I definitely don't want to spoil it for anybody watching it. But I will say that I actually really loved the ending, like the very end. And I'm sure you guys that have seen it know what I'm talking about. I just thought that was the perfect capper to the movie.
Would you say you adored Unhinged? Adored Unhinged?
Yeah. It took me a second to get that one, Eric.
That was a good one, wasn't it?
It was a layered joke.
So many layers, like Smelly Cat.
Well, I think all I can say to you, Eric, is shut that door and your mouth. What about you, Eric? Did you see it?
No, not yet, but it does sound like something I will enjoy.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Eric, I think you'll love this film, actually.
I think because I was looking on Rotten Tomatoes and people were going, oh, yes, it's not a sort of a kind of good critique of modern life, and it's no message to it, and it's all surface and blah, blah, blah. And I think, well, so fucking what? It's supposed to be like a From Hell movie. It's not meant to be this kind of big socio kind of political sort of discourse on the state of America. It's just like,
God knows what they'd make of Friday the 13th Part 5.
Yeah, and what's interesting about Unhinged is that it's not set in any particular state. It's like nameless. The city's nameless, so it's really not trying to make any kind of statement. It's just it's like the duel thing, like one person versus another. It's just a cat and mouse chase. So
to me, it's a great we always call popcorn movie because it's just entertaining from start to finish. It's not trying to be, like you guys said, it's not trying to be anything else aside from just a fun, like From Hell kind of movie. That's it. I mean, and I don't understand why people were looking for all these like hidden meanings and stuff, because I'm like, I don't really look for that. I mean, it's awesome when a movie has them, but I don't go into a movie looking for that. Hey, Eric, what was the hidden meaning to the first Friday the 13th? A mother's love?
Yeah, or let me think. Yeah, I think
invest in lots of string.
Invest lots of string to throw at potential attackers. I think I still I'm intrigued by Joseph's theory about a past relationship between Steve Christie and Mrs. Voorhees. So I think Spurned Lovers is possibly the hidden theme.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay, right. Well, thank you, Joseph. Is that all?
Well, yeah, I do want to give a couple of shout outs here, if you don't mind, in lieu of any more recently seen, because that's all I have. At first, I'd like to give a shout out to Uber fan Leo Dean. He's just the sweetest guy. Thank you for listening, Leo. I've ran into some trouble here recently, and a couple of our super fans helped me out, so I'm just repaying the favor.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
Before you go any further, I just wanted to say I also owe Leo a thanks because he sent me Friday the 13th, the 3D disc in the mail because he's getting a replacement one. So I can watch it in 3D today, and Wes has agreed to watch it with me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, he's a good dude. Also, friend of the show, Batdan KC. He has a podcast that I really hope you guys will check out called the Remedial Film Class Podcast. And this is interesting, as what they do is watch popular films with a quote-unquote film virgin, and his name is George. And after they get his initial reactions on a film, he's not seen because he doesn't really watch a lot of movies, they basically go back and provide George with insights into that film in question. And then it's a very unique idea, and they're currently showing this George character, the Friday the 13th series. There's some synchronicity for you, and they plan this Friday the 13th content dump on the 13th of this month, which of course is a Friday, and which is when this episode will hit YouTube for us. But yes, there's some little connection there for you. But finally, if you're a collector of horror movie trinkets and gewgaws, I urge you to check out pinsploitation.com. They handcraft these slasher movie buttons and patches and pins and stuff, and the detail put into these designs is very striking. So it's pinsploitation.com. If you use the promo code HORRORFAM, that's HORRORFAM, you will get 20% off of your purchase. And be sure to tell both Pinsploitation and the Remedial Film Class podcast that the Hysteria Continues that the Hysteria Continues sent you. Wow, it almost sounds like we have sponsorship, guys. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. And Pinsploitation is fantastic. They do like some amazing brooches, and but I want to see it. They've done an adamant one, so I'm looking for the Susie one. If you're listening, Merle.
Ooh, I'll have a Toya one.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you, and thanks to everyone supporting the show. We very much appreciate it. And in fact, actually, talking of supporting the show, we released our a Patreon episode, a freebie for a week of the 1971 top 3. And we did 1972 this month or last, however it works out, 1973 next month. So if you enjoyed that freebie, then please do consider joining Patreon for as little as $1 a month, I think it is. And Patreon exclusive things. I mean, those top 3 episodes, they kind of run to about 90 minutes now, don't they? So they're pretty much
full episodes,
aren't they? And then we also cover another film, and we're recording today the Australian short The Plumber by Peter Weir, from 1978, which is going to be an interesting one to talk about. So we cover kind of non-slasher horror movies mostly, and sometimes some off-piste ones. So yeah, if you enjoy the show, then do check out the Patreon. And everyone who is currently a Patreon supporter, thank you ever so much. We really do appreciate it. So thank you, Joseph. Nathan, how about you?
Well, honestly, what I had was the Unhinged. I wanted to talk about Friday the 13th 3D, but I didn't get a chance to watch it last night, so it'll have to be for the next episode. But I can't wait because, Justin, you said it was pretty good.
Well, just to not to preempt, but yes, we watched that on Halloween night, a double bill of Friday the 13th Part 2 and Part 3. And they're from the Scream Factory box set, so I managed to get those working on my my region free player, and Part 3 was fantastic. I know there is some issues. I will be sending off a replacement disc for they're doing a worldwide replacement for 3 discs that had issues, and I think for that one it was just that some of the it was in 3D, but some of the title sequence didn't come out the screen. But the people we watched with had never seen a 3D movie before, ever, which surprised me. So we're going to do House of Wax of Vincent Price in 3D, which has got really good 3D next week. But they said that actually stuff was coming out the screen. It felt like you could touch it. So it's kind of how I remembered the old 3D when I saw 3D in the cinema back in the early 80s, when you actually did feel like you could actually reach out and touch things in front of your face, which again sounds like one of Eric's Saturday nights.
Ha ha ha. I thought you were going to start singing Personal Jesus by Depeche Mode.
But no, it was fantastic. And the 3D, say I had been lucky enough to see it in 3D at a retro screening at the British Film Institute a decade or so ago. And I remember it being some of the best 3D of the time, and it still works. There's a few issues. The picture's a little bit soft, but I think it's just the way it was shot. But it looks so good, and some of the it just adds that popcorn element. It just kind of adds that extra whatever to it, just gives it that extra pop, literally, off the screen. So, you'll love it, Nathan, I'm sure. Have you seen Friday the 13th? I'm so
excited.
Have you seen it before, the film? I jest, by the way.
Oh, okay. I was like, have I seen Friday the 13th Part 3? And no, this will be my first time.
Oh, wow.
I've never heard Harold plot before.
Until now.
Yeah. Oh.
At least that wasn't in 3D.
Could you imagine if they'd done a 3D shot up the toilet bowl to his bum hole and it and dropping out the screen?
Was hitting the scout coming out.
Like Green Apple Quick Step just splashing out right in your face.
Oh
my God.
Yes. Anyway, keeping it classy, Nathan, as I know you always want to do.
Yeah, I mean, hey, got to keep it classy.
Got to keep it classy. So, thank you, Nate. Anything else you want to mention?
No, that's about it.
Okay, right. Well, thank you. Erik, how about you?
Well, it's a butt kiss from me, I'm afraid. It was either watch movies or Dynasty, and Dynasty won.
Ooh, were there any cat fights?
No, I wasn't. I was just quoting the girl with the big hair gets turned into a cockroach in Nightmare on Elm Street 4. Well, we had 3 films to watch for today, and that was what I have watched.
Right. Well, thank you, Erik. I've just got a few I kind of rattle through. I mentioned, I think on our private chat, I'd seen Follow Me, which was the there's been a rash over the last 4 or 5 years of kind of social media horror movies, and obviously the one that's caused the most buzz during lockdown was Host, the Zoom one. And this one is for a slightly different angle. It's by the director Will Wernick, who did Escape Room in 2017. That almost docudrama realistic movie, Escape Room. If any of you seen
it, very realistic.
It was so realistic. Yeah, I did think it was a documentary. Was it not?
Yeah. Well, Follow Me. You'll be glad to hear if you enjoyed those kind of absurd thrills of Escape Room. It is equally ludicrous in a good ways and not so good ways. This one follows a YouTube prank or kind of prank, kind of those kind of the groups that kind of just do stuff for people to watch, to get lots of watches and then make money off it. So they do kind of pranks or go off and do various Daredevil-y type things. And so this follows a group of Americans who go to an escape room in Moscow, and then things happen. Not so good things happen. So it's a kind of a mixture of Escape Room and Hostel, I kind of guess. And you can probably already imagine what that's going to be like. But just to give you some idea, I mean, I'm not going to give away the ending at all or the thing. But the thing that really, the moment where it kind of jumped the shark for me was there's this moment quite early on in the film. It's when they enter the escape room, and to get a key to open a door, the main character has to cut open a real body to get a key hidden inside the chest cavity or the stomach. And I was just thinking that if I was in an escape room and I saw a dead body lying there, and then I had to cut this cadaver open and take out a key, I would probably be thinking, this isn't quite right. Maybe there's something wrong with this. But the character doesn't even blink an eye at dissecting this dead body to remove a key, and still thinks it's all part of the game.
Well, maybe they think it's a prop.
Well, it clearly isn't a prop, but I know, I would think, but it was clearly a proper dead body that lying there. So, but then it gets more and more ludicrous as it goes on. But it's a fun time. So if you if you check your brain in at the door, then, if you enjoyed Escape Room, then you might enjoy this. But it's kind of polar opposite to that was a film that was on Netflix here, but I think it might be a BBC film, I'm not sure, but it's called His House, which is a haunted house movie, and it's about 2 migrants, asylum seekers, come from Sudan to England, and they get given this kind of very rundown flat on a big council estate, and they're told that basically they have to stay there, and if they kind of mess it up, then they might be their asylum might be rejected. But it turns out the house is haunted, so they're stuck in this kind of horrible flat with this thing, and they have to decide whether or not to hide it from the authorities or to stick it out. So either they stick it out or they risk being thrown out of the country. This was really, really good. Actually, it was surprisingly well done, surprisingly scary. Actually, I thought it had some very, very effective, creepy ghost and horror segments throughout it. Very well done. So it's not the most fast-moving of movies. It's kind of like, let's say, polar opposite, something like Follow Me. But a very timely movie. So I enjoyed that a lot. So that's definitely worth seeing. It's on Netflix over here. I'm not sure about elsewhere. But have any of you guys heard of that or seen it?
What was it called again?
His House. So it's it's got a couple of twists and turns in it as well, which I didn't see coming. So it's definitely worth a watch.
It is. It's on Netflix here anyway. So
okay, cool, excellent. And lastly, I just want to mention obviously the zombie genre is well worn by this time. So much so, obviously, as I'm sure you know, is The Walking Dead is coming to its limping literally to its conclusion. But I did see a film on Shudder, which I thought was took my interest because I liked the concept, and it was a film called It Stains the Sand Blood Red. From a few years ago, 2016 or 2017, and it's about a zombie outbreak, as you might imagine. And it has a woman played by Brittany Allen, who is her and a boyfriend are driving away from Las Vegas, and they get stuck in sand, and there's a lone zombie on their tail, and so it's so it ends up with her basically trying to escape this lone zombie that keeps coming after her. So it's very much different from the idea of obviously like the kind of zombie hordes of, Dawn of the Dead and all that kind of thing. So you've just literally almost reminds me a little bit of those kind of TV movies, or like where you have it very much kind of, two-person setup. So for the majority of the movie, it's her running through the desert, cradling a bottle of vodka, which endeared me to her. And in the film's standout moment, she distracts the zombie by throwing a bloody tampon at him, which he munches on as she tries to get away.
Ew.
Well, I thought at least it was quite a clever move. But that was it was kind of not brilliant. But it's for a lot of its running time, it's pretty diverting. I enjoyed it, and Brittany Allen is really good. She was in that really good movie which I saw recommended some years ago called What Keeps You Alive. From 2018, sort of good sort of psycho suspense. About it's got it turns into a slasher movie at the end. So that's another one to watch out for if you've not seen it. But so I've seen a few other things. In fact, as I mentioned, when we get onto the main thing, I've been watching some of the other Friday the 13th fan films, but I'll talk about those in the context of these movies we're covering. So, Joseph.
A fan tribute to Friday the 13th, Never Hike Alone follows an adventure blogger, Kyle MacLeod, Andrew Lady, who uncovers the long-lost remains of Camp Crystal Lake while on a solo backpacking trip. Ignoring the campfire tales from his childhood, Kyle's search turns deadly when he makes the grave mistake of crossing the path of Camp Blood's legendary mass murderer, Jason Voorhees, Vicente DeSanti, the director, I think. Stranded in the forest with Jason on his heels, Kyle must push his survival skills to their limits if he hopes to survive the night. Otherwise, he'll wind up as another lost victim of the cursed camp. And that was from the Womp Stomp Films official website for Never Hike Alone. They're the production crew behind Never Hike Alone and Never Hike in the Snow. And the film works considerably well within its constraints as a fan film, and dare I say may arguably stand above the last few official entries. Those looking for more of a body count structure may be disappointed that this fan film tries a different tactic. It goes for the cat and mouse approach, which, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I don't think that's ever really been a prominent element in the Friday the 13th canon, outside, say, maybe the second film with Jenny and Jason. But, that film also had a sprawling cast who met grisly ends in the typical one-by-one structure. Here it's Jason Voorhees versus a hiker. That's essentially it. And so what unfolds is this sort of a chase film through the wilderness. And that is a deviation from the formula that we like. And as we know, deviations often produce questionable product, i.e. Jason X or Jason Goes to Hell. But here it kind of works in large part due to the overwhelming effort put into the suspense factor. The film also looks spectacular and well above its budget. I think for me though, the film kind of treads dangerous ground and making this main character this sort of this blogger come influencer type. But he's actually very, by convenience of the plot, he's very taciturn and he's not overly, Instagram style annoying. So he's likable enough that you kind of root for him. Jason Voorhees, he looks fairly decent here too, though I must add the qualifier for the budget. As this may be where Never Hike Alone kind of begins to falter. And I say begins because that's important. But anyway, the Jason character here looks only slightly above a mail order catalog costume, I think, for me at least. I think the color grading on the film and the addition of all this booming sort of Foley work to accentuate his movements, it sort of, masks, no pun intended, the kind of moderate look of the costume fairly well. So it's a step down in comparison to the high sheen you'd get from, the official series. But hey, I guess it's to be expected from a fan film. Earlier I said I used the word begins because while I ultimately enjoyed Never Hike Alone, I felt that the ending or the insistence on tying this to the actual canon, while it's admirable and cute in its sort of way, it kind of undermines the suspense portion leading up to it. So essentially what they do is they cast Tom Matthews in the Tommy Jarvis role to close the last few minutes of the film, which in and of itself is not a bad thing, but it feels like an afterthought almost, or perhaps it's like a crowdfunding perk tacked onto their initial script. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's good to see Tom again, but honestly, the film sort of stops dead in its tracks before, reaching a satisfying conclusion on its own, to close with this silly sequence that basically just shouts back to Jason lives. It's not 100% deal breaker for this film, but it kind of detracts from everything that went before it. Overall, though, I thought Never Hike Alone was pretty darn effective for a fan film. It's a lot of fun, and I'll reiterate that I'd have no problems watching this again over something like Jason X, which I still contend is the absolute nadir for the Jason character, but what have you. But I might have some more things to say about this, but for now, what about you, Nathan? What did you think of Never Hike Alone?
I really enjoyed Never Hike Alone. I was a little skeptical because I had heard the buzz about it when it first was released. I was a little skeptical about watching it because, I don't know, I mean, a lot of fan films I've seen, I've just not really liked a whole lot. So I've just, been, it's okay, I guess. But I was actually surprised with this one. I mean, when it opens and all those drone shots, it just looks professional. And I think that was awesome. I love his exploring of the campgrounds. I love the little crime scene markers and trying to piece together, okay, I wonder which death that was or this was. I thought that was a lot of fun. I think that he made a good protagonist in the film. Going up against Jason, I thought he did really well. And there, like you said, there are some suspenseful scenes. There's a few jump scares that got me too. And I'm also very glad that they kept it a little under an hour because I think that's just the perfect runtime for this story. So I'm glad they didn't try to pad it out. I felt that it was edited very well, really good pacing. And unlike you, Joe, I actually kind of liked the whole tying it together at the end with Tommy Jarvis and all that at the ambulance. I just thought that was fun. I did love the scene where he's screaming on the gurney and Jason's standing right there. I mean, how bad would that suck? That would suck so bad if you were in his position. But no, it's a really fun movie. I liked it a lot, and I appreciate all the effort they put into this fan film. I think they put a lot of thought into it, and some good gore sequences too. The head crushing scene. I thought it was really well done, honestly. So yeah, I mean, 2 thumbs up for me. I thought it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think what I meant was the tone with the Tommy Jarvis stuff feels almost comical, whereas the stuff leading up to it almost feels, proper Friday the 13th serious. I mean, I don't know Friday the 13th, they typically kind of have their tongue in cheek in a lot of the older films, and certainly the ending here does too. But I don't know, it just kind of contrasts with the suspense stuff. But Erik, what did you think of Never Hike Alone?
Well, like Nathan, I was kind of skeptical going into it. I'm not really that well versed in fan films of any kind. I'd seen one of the Friday the 13th ones before, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was kind of, its structure was people walk in the woods and get decapitated in really quite effective special effects scenes, but there was no actual structure to it, and I kind of lost interest. But with Never Hike Alone, I was pleasantly surprised. As Nathan said, it starts with these drone shots, and I think the drone is one of the great inventions for low-budget filmmakers these days, because it gives you these incredible aerial shots that make your film look so professional, that were really the reserve of big, huge budget movies back in the day. If you think of the opening of The Shining and that aerial shot of the car going up the mountains, and how much that must have cost Stanley Kubrick to get hire the helicopter and do all those shots, and now you can do it for like tuppence halfpenny. And I think that gives the film a real sheen at the very start. I mean, I was taken aback at how professional the film looked on the whole, and it had a good score. The score sounded almost orchestral, and I was thinking, how did he afford this? And the acting is decent. It's shot really, really well. As you said, the structure is very different to your average Friday the 13th movie, in that it's one person, for the most part, exploring a camp, and then Jason appears maybe 20 minutes into it or so. So it has a very, very different feel. It has a kind of a semi-found footage feel to it, as well, as sometimes we see shots through his GoPro camera, and so it has kind of a Blair Witchy feel, and he does some confessions to camera as well at one stage. Some of the frights were quite good. There was one very effective scene, Nathan was mentioning a jump scene, and there's a scene where he's looking through a sort of a gap in the door or something, and he sees Jason, and then he sort of moves back, and then he moves again to peer through the crack again, and Jason's gone, and then all of a sudden Jason appears, right in front of him, and I thought that sequence was really quite effective. For me, the thing with fan films is they often feel kind of like promo reels rather than films in themselves. This one probably felt more filmy, I suppose, than the average fan film, because it has kind of a structure to it, but it I don't know, it feels kind of unsatisfying as such. It's really well made, and I think, like, if they ever plan to reboot the Friday the 13th series for real, New Line or Paramount or whoever owns the rights now, I think this dude is one of the people they should really consider, because he does such a great job with such limited resources, I'm sure, on this thing. And like Nathan, I kind of liked that sort of tacked on ending. I do agree totally, Joseph, that there is kind of a tonal shift, because it does become kind of goofy. And one of the paramedics is called Axel, which I'm wondering, is he supposed to be the same guy from the final chapter?
No, it's like a reference because he's reading a Playboy magazine.
Yeah. So it's another Axel who's a bit sleazy and is a paramedic. So, although it was Axel in Friday in the final chapter, was he a paramedic or was he a morgue attendant?
He was a morgue attendant or something.
Yeah, so maybe he's not. I did love, like, the special effects are quite good. I agree with you about Jason. It does look kind of it was bought in the local costume store, but the gore effects are good. The squishing of the head I thought was great, where Jason jumps out of the lake at the end. I was really surprised with the Tom Matthews cameo, because I wasn't expecting that. I'm not sure if his name appears in the credits at the start. If it did, I must have missed it, because I was like, oh my god, it's Tom Matthews. So I got a real surprise when he appeared on screen. But like Nathan was saying, I was really, really very pleasantly surprised. First of all, just at how professional the film looks, considering it's, quote, a fan film. But the fact that also that it sort of has a structure. I think they were wise to limit it to just a few characters, because, as it's a 52 minute running time. So, as I said, the other Friday the 13th fan film I saw was cramming in just so many characters. And was just really a sequence of special effects shots, which were very well done, but the film as a whole just didn't work for me, whereas this one I thought was really decent. But as I said, it had kind of a promo reel feel about it, as if it was kind of an audition piece, but it's very successful as that, I think. So yeah, thumbs up from me.
Sounds good. What about you, Justin?
Yeah, the second time watch for me. I think I watched it when it came out originally, so I hadn't seen it for a couple of years. I mean, I think I echo what you've all said. It looks great. It looks, for me, when I've kind of avoided kind of fan movies in the past because I just kind of presumed it would be a group of people with a camcorder with their friends in the woods, mugging the camera, pretty much. And that certainly has changed in the last few years. And I think that this film probably was one of the films that really helped push other people towards making some of the films, which I'll talk about a little bit later, some of the other ones I've watched. But it looks amazing. I mean, it looks so professional, and I like the idea. I think the main character is very engaging, and I think the director said something that we've said all along. And I mean, it's something that rings true with certainly the early Friday the 13th movies, is that you want likable characters, you want someone to root for. And with this, the main character in this, he is generally an agreeable character. For somebody to carry the whole film on his shoulders, he does very well. So he's not annoying, and you kind of do want to see him make his way out of there. I think the film, there's some very, very successful elements to it. I mean, as far as, there's bits, shots like when he finds Mrs. Voorhees' head on the shrine, and then he gets Jason comes up behind him and pulls him through his curtains and throws him out, and he's running away. The way that was shot was very, very good. It was incredibly accomplished. My bugbear, I kind of guess with it, in so much that it's not the Jason character. I think is good, and he's scary and he's imposing. And the main character, he's really good in what he's doing. But is it a Friday the 13th movie? When you look back at the original Friday the 13th movies, you see, for me, the idea that Jason would hang around for 40 minutes of a movie, or not 40 minutes, 30 minutes, watching this character walking around his home, it goes against the Jason Voorhees that we kind of know, isn't it? He's not someone who kind of is shy about coming forward with a machete. So that in itself, this idea that Jason was just lurking around, just watching this character poking around Camp Crystal Lake, didn't quite ring true. It works within the context of the film itself, and it certainly amps up the suspense. But that, for me, felt slightly off as far as kind of the feel of a Friday the 13th movie. Having said that, it doesn't mean everything has to be a Xerox copy of the original franchise film. So that's only a minor bugbear. And I'm not even sure if having watched the fan films where, as Erik said, quite often it's just endless barrage of characters and various things, actually having this space to breathe. And harking back a little bit to that film I mentioned, It Stains the Sand Blood Red, about the the two-person, the kind of hero and villain as the kind of focus and of the running time. It works very, very well. I agree. I mean, the end bit with the ambulance and Tom Matthews, I mean, it's a great crowd pleaser, and it works within the context. But I agree, it kind of jars a little bit with that kind of tonal shift. From what without getting into background, but my understanding is that the Tom Matthews possibly came on board later on, while after the film had been made, perhaps, or certainly part way through, because I think it took about a year to film this. So that was, I think that was an add-on which possibly wasn't intended when they originally shot the movie. But overall, I mean, it's it looks great. It doesn't overstay its welcome. So yeah, it's a thumbs up from me. I mean, I think it's if I want the more typical Friday the 13th type fan movie, then I'll talk about some of those coming up. But I think it's great, and I agree that the director shows so much promise with this. If he could get a decent budget, he can make a fantastic Friday the 13th full-length feature. So, bring it on.
Yeah, I was talking earlier about how they kind of masked the lower quality of the costume with all these sound effects and Foley work. And I love, like, when Jason's kind of just basically stomping after this guy. It's like, whoosh, 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 whoosh. I thought that was a very, effective touch to the film.
What, like the doors in Movie House Massacre?
Yeah. Well, it's got this big stomp sound, like boom, boom. Even when he's like just kind of barely traipsing after him. It's like his footsteps, they just kind of echo through your ears. It's a very good touch. Sound helps sell a film a lot, and I think they do a really good sound work is what I'm trying to say here. Anyway.
Yes. So, how do we want to do this? Because obviously following up with the next one, which is kind of a prequel, isn't it? But did we want to do a little bit of background on this one, or?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I don't have any background for either film because for one, I've been kind of extremely busy, but two, it's all these franchise types, I typically just try to avoid them because you can find that stuff just easily. But if you want to go ahead and get into some background, if you guys have any, just have at it.
I've just got a little bit. I haven't got a massive amount because there is actually on YouTube. Obviously, if you want to watch this, because the whole thing with fan films is, and obviously we can talk about this a bit, is the reason that they can do them is they don't make a profit. So I think to avoid, you might know more about this, you guys, but I presume my understanding is they can use these copyrighted materials if they don't make a profit from them, like a fair usage thing.
Yeah, they put these on YouTube and they don't monetize their videos as long as they're not making any profit whatsoever. I think maybe you have more on this, Justin, but from what I read, maybe the guy who did this film, he was involved in some sort of court kerfuffle with Paramount at one point, and then they just basically came to the conclusion like, hey, he's not making any money, so we're just going to leave him alone.
I mean, yeah, I don't know because it seems like, for instance, they don't use the Friday the 13th name in this. They use the character Jason and his voice Count Crystal Lake, but they can studiously avoid the Friday the 13th name. And I know that was obviously what happened with when New Line took on the franchise, and they couldn't use the Friday the 13th name, so they used Jason Goes to Hell. So I kind of thought it was possibly kind of a deal with that. But having said that, watching some of the other Friday the 13th fan films, they certainly don't shy away from utilizing the music or the name. So I don't know. I mean, one of the things just to quickly mention, because say it is all on YouTube, so it's very easy. Sometimes we cover films which it's quite difficult to watch unless you know where to look. Whereas this, it's literally all you need to do is go to YouTube to watch it. There's also a making of documentary for half an hour, which is worth watching to see how it all came together. And just to surmise that slightly, I mean, the director, Vincent DeSanti, who plays Jason in most of the film, although he doesn't do the stunts in the film, he kind of grew up loving horror movies in the 1980s, and much like us, he enjoyed renting horror videos, and he said he grew the Friday the 13th movies had a special place in his heart, partly because he grew up next to a lake and in the woods, so he said it had a certain resonance for him. So he wanted to make horror movies, but he moved to LA, I think in 2008, and ended up working on high-scale animation for like major studios. But he wanted to make a horror movie, and I'm going to guess that in a lot of ways these films are promo reels for people's ability to draw an audience and to show what they could do, which is fair enough. But the main guy, Drew Lightly, who he was a friend and colleague who worked in animation with him. They actually the year before this, they went out and made this film before. So they've already done this film once, but he was so unsatisfied with how it worked out, it never got released. So I think it was a shorter version, and in the making of it shows the main character looking much younger with shorter hair, running away from Jason. So little clips of what was never released. So they decided to do it a year later, I think, and they went scouting for locations. And apparently, the summer camp they found, some locals told them about it, and they just filmed on this abandoned summer camp, which couldn't have been a better location, really. So, it was crowdfunded, and it took about a year to film. And it's obviously we could talk about the prequel coming up. There's also 2 sequels which are in, I don't know how far into production they are, but there's Never Hike Alone 2, Never Hike Again, and also Never Hike Alone 3, Jason Takes Crystal Lake. These are on IMDb. Whether or not they're real, I think they are real, but they all have quite convincing looking promo art for them. So, but there was also another one. I don't know if you saw. I can't remember if I wrote down the name of it, but there was there's another short on there from which is about 14 minutes, and it was something like the Lost Never Hike Again, the Lost Tapes, Ghost Jason. And it was shot on an iPhone by the look of it. It was kind of because you remember when way back in the mist of time when there was all the talk about what they were going to do for the new Friday 13th film. The two ideas that kind of popped into my head, or ones that they talked about, was one about Jason in the snow, which obviously we're going to be leading into. But there was also talk of a found footage Friday the 13th. And did you guys come across this one on YouTube? The 14-minute.
I watched a snippet of it. Yes.
So it's shot on an iPhone, but not in a portrait mode of someone going into Camp Crystal Lake and rescuing some hostages, and then them being chased around by Jason Voorhees, and then him filming on his phone as they're dispatched in various kind of gory ways. And it looks like it was. I couldn't see it on IMDb or anything, but it's by the same studio, the Womp Stomp studio. So I presume it's an official release, and that seemed to have come out around the same time, or maybe a week before or something. The short we're going to cover next, but obviously there's much Crystal Lake stuff to mine for this. So, but yeah, that's all the background I have on the first one, I think. I don't know if you've got anything to add, Erik.
No.
What about you, Nathan?
No.
I do want to mention there's another Friday the 13th fan film called The Curse of Jason. I've probably mentioned this on the show before, but it was made for considerably less than this, I would assume. And for a fan film, it's the opening to that fan film, it's basically a bunch of people sitting around a campfire, like in the Friday the 13th Part 2, and then Jason shows up. And what they do in this film is they have different iterations of Jason. Like they have Jason from Part 2 in his sack mask, and Jason Part 3 when he first gets the hockey mask, and then they have the Roy version, and they have the zombie version Jason. So it's like all these different iterations throughout this period of time that lapses over this like 14 or 15 minute film, and it's pretty good for the budget. I think it's filmed for like a few $1,000s. It was made by a buddy of mine named Jack Norman, who plays Jason. And the one thing I will give them credit for in this particular fan film is that they go to considerable lengths to make the Jason characters look identical to the movies they're referencing. So they do a really good job there. So if you want to check that one out, it's on YouTube as well. It's free. It's called Friday the 13th, The Curse of Jason.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you, Joseph. There's also, just to mention, the director also did a pop video for 4-minute video, which is like a mini Friday 13th film. Looked like it was filmed around the same time as this, of like three friends go to Camp Crystal Lake and get gorily off one by one in the space of this pop video. And I forgot to write down the name of that, but again, I'm not sure if it's Mythos, a Friday 13th fan film short. Maybe that was a different one, but anyway, there's so much out there. But I've got to say I have watched. Shall I talk about the fan films I've watched now, or should we wait until we've done the next one?
I mean, go ahead.
Well, just because in the context of you mentioned the Curse of Jason, so I watched 3 feature-length fan films. I'm not going to into massive amount of detail, but the ones that I've seen was there was Voorhees from 2020, and it seems what's happened with the Never Hike Alone is that other people have kind of not jumped on the bandwagon exactly, but making their own Friday the 13th films. And of course, it's not obviously just Friday the 13th. I mean, there's loads of Halloween ones as well. But what seems to have happened is that people are going out to make semi-professional looking movies with plots and all sorts of things. Which so Voorhees is probably the lowest. Well, not the lowest rent, but it feels a little bit cheaper than some of the others, and it has a group of bank robbers that after a bank heist end up at Camp Crystal Lake and get bumped off one by one by Jason. It's got some low some problems with it. The sound isn't great. It's difficult to make out what people are saying. Quite a few things that you would get from low budget filmmaking. Some of the pitfalls you get from that appear in this, but that might be worth looking. Again, these are all free to watch on YouTube. The next one I saw was which is the campiest one I can guess, is Friday the 13th Return to Crystal Lake. Which again is kind of lower budget, but it's it made me laugh more. It seemed to be more goofy than the others in some ways, because in this one, the kids come back. Well, they're kids; they're all kind of teenagers. Come back to Camp Crystal Lake with the counselors, and the counselors all get so wasted that Jason turns up and kills all the teenagers, while the counselors are all wasted and they're really worried because all the parents are calling and saying, well, "I haven't heard from my children," and they're all dead, and so they have to try and work out how to explain why everyone died while they're off their head on magic mushrooms. So that was quite, I mean, that's quite an entertaining one. Again, I mean, I think that was about 55 minutes or so, but it's quite sort of silly, but it was, and again, it suffers some of the low budget things. But the one that probably the most accomplished one is another one which I think came out last year, which is Friday the 13th Vengeance. Which stars, it's got Tom McLaughlin, from obviously director of Friday the 13th Part 6, is in it briefly in a cameo role. But it has CJ Graham, who I think he played Jason in Part 6. He's back playing Elias Voorhees, or Elijah, is it Elias or Elijah Voorhees? Who was
the one that was married to Veronica
Voorhees.
Shot it.
So he comes back to Camp Crystal Lake, and then there's Jason comes back as well. So and there's kind of Tommy Jarvis is in it, but not in it in so much that his daughter. He goes missing, and they go looking for him, and they're joined by the offspring of people that have been killed in past movies. And then the thing I liked about it, I mean, it's very accomplished. It's very gory, very well shot, but it has all the kind of the things you would expect of a Friday the 13th movie. In so much there's just lots of random characters being killed, but within the framework of a workable story. So you have these ghost tours going on with Camp Crystal Lake tours, which actually do happen in real life, don't they? You have people going to the original camp with the stars of the film. So there's lots of people walking around Camp Crystal Lake being beheaded and have disemboweled and all the various things with Jason going around. And then you have the offspring of Jason's victims trying to get him. So that was that's worth a look. It's so basically if Paramount, or not Paramount, but Sean F. Cunningham and what's his name?
Victor Miller.
Yes, Victor Miller. That's of course. Once they haven't made a Friday the 13th movie since 2009 with the ill-fated remake. And you think, well, I wonder with these fan films is what it seems almost that it's actually hyping up the interest in these movies, because the people that are appearing in these movies are all kind of young 20-somethings or teenagers. So there's obviously a kind of retro interest in the Friday the 13th films from the 80s. And that in itself, it kind of, for me, if I owned the copyright for these movies, I'd be thinking there's a lot of money to be made here. So the sooner they kind of sort out their differences and we get a proper Friday the 13th movie, we'll be happy. But in the meantime, there are people making serviceable, kind of good-looking Friday the 13th movies. And certainly films like Return to Crystal Lake and Vengeance and Voorhees, to a lesser extent, are more along the lines of what you'd expect a modern version of a Friday the 13th Part 5 or Part 6 kind of movie, which is kind of more popcorny and, breasts and even. But the thing, actually, what made me not laugh exactly, but how they got away with it. But in Friday the 13th Return to Crystal Lake, they're playing ABBA, they're dancing to ABBA in it, they're dancing to all sorts of 80s music, even Rick Astley. I don't know how they got away with doing that. Is it just, again, because if you don't make any money off it, you can just use copyrighted material?
I'm guessing so. Yeah.
I don't really know. It's kind of bizarre.
I think I get a lot of people put it up there, and then if they're asked to cease and desist, then they'll just take it down, maybe.
Yeah.
Until they're discovered,
Well, it was just kind of shameless in these. I mean, it's not, but they're also using all the music stings and everything, and using Friday the 13th logo and and they've all got disclaimers in front of them saying this is no way connected to Paramount or New Line and blah 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 and all those disclaimers, but they're quite shameless in using copyrighted material. If that's all fine and good, then it just for me it seemed funny to actually having seen lots of movies in the past where, for instance, like I know Return of the Living Dead, when they had to change the music and all kind of different things, when you have films that run into copyright material problems and have to change soundtrack, and some reason some films don't come out because of that. So to see that people dancing to Dancing Queen while dressed as a camp counselor at Camp Crystal Lake, it's kind of quite funny. But anyway, so there's plenty more out there. I think Jason Rising is the new one that's due out, and there's a trailer for that. So that seems to be the next big one. So, but it seems that everyone else making these Friday the 13th fan movies are going down the less Never Hike Alone, kind of slightly serious, but more down the popcorn route of a Friday the 13th or a Sleepaway Camp style sequel, sort of Friday the 13th movies, which is fun. Sometimes the acting is a bit variable, but if you're in the right state of mind. But should we move on to the next one?
Never Hike in the Snow is set 3 months prior to the events of Never Hike Alone from 2017 and follows the strange disappearance of Mark Hill, a Crystal Lake resident who went for a hike in the dead of winter and never came home. That too was from the Womp Stomp Films official website, and I think they put as much effort into that plot synopsis that they did the actual film. I wasn't a fan of this one like I was the first one. The film's best moment and the entire reason this thing exists in the first place is the rather excellent opening kill set in the snow where the hiker, I guess it's Mark Hill, he's running from Jason, and Jason takes him out with a bow and arrow. A lot of people are like, well, Jason wouldn't know how to use a bow and arrow. I'm like, if he grew up near a camp, I'm sure he picked up on some archery, but that's beside the point. Unfortunately, for Never Hike in the Snow, I think it goes downhill from that opening scene, and it sort of becomes this haphazard, it has this haphazard flashback narrative, and it also has this present-day narrative going on. And the present-day narrative seems more interested in making references to Jason Lives Again, than it does telling its own story. Or even offering a body count structure like the last film did. And they could have done that, but they didn't. And all in all, what people really want to see is Jason in the snow killing a bunch of people, and that really doesn't happen here. I commend the effort, but I think Never Hike Alone, Never Hike in the Snow, like Never Hike Alone, it loses a lot of steam during its entire runtime, like that film did during its finale. For the same reason, connecting it to the whole Tommy Jarvis thing. And I get that these inclusions of these little, fan callbacks, they're kind of the hook of the crowdfunding process. Like you say, hey, I'm going to make this movie, and if you donate this much money, we're going to tack on, a star cameo here. And, that's basically what this film feels like. It's a 30-minute version of that. I just didn't find all that interesting that much this time around. Whereas in Never Hike Alone, where the tone is shifted a little bit, at least it's kind of a a 2-minute haha thing. But here it feels kind of stretched out. They have Tommy back again, but for me, Tommy's story, it ended fine by sending Jason back to his resting place in Jason Lives. So after that, I really not that interested in what's going on with Tommy anymore, if I'm honest. And Tom Matthews, he's relegated to just basically kind of rehashing his befuddlement over incompetent police procedural, and he doesn't get a lot else to do. And we also get Deputy Rick Clone, who was a character in Jason Lives, played by the same actor. He's the one who had the red scope on his gun in Jason Lives. He's back as the sheriff this time, and his character may have elicited a chuckle or two back in the midst of time, but that whole ya-bang is certainly gone this time around, and I don't think he's interesting enough in and of himself to literally carry a majority of a Jason story. Again, this is 30 minutes long, but still. I think Never Hike in the Snow does have a few side charms apart from that opening sequence, which I reiterate was fantastic. Like the predecessor, I think it looks phenomenal, maybe even better than Never Hike Alone. It has some gorgeous cinematography. The sparse kills here, they're done with this sort of bravado that we saw in sort of something like the recent unearthing of the uncut footage from the Friday the 13th Part 2, but kind of more modern in their impact. It's got a playful tone about it that I can't deny, but guys, I don't know. it felt like, it felt like a film by a fan who had struck a sizable amount of oil with one movie and then decided, maybe I should expand upon that, when really I think less would have been more. I didn't care for the police investigation here. I thought the flashbacks leading up to that opening sequence, I thought they were just kind of redundant. Again, I love Tom Matthews, but the Tommy stuff just honestly just bored me. I mean, for me, Never Hike in the Snow, it should have been a pure Jason body count in the snow picture. And I get, maybe they didn't have the budget or the resources to kind of do that, but it wasn't really what I was hoping for. After all the hype surrounding Never Hike Alone. So not a lot of precipitation here for me, I'm afraid, for Never Hike in the Snow. But Nathan, it's y'all's turn.
Oh, it's y'all's turn, is it? Okay. Yeah. I'm with you in that I did prefer the first one, but I do love the idea of Jason in the snow. Something about just the red blood and the pure white snow just, I think, looks so good on kind of juxtaposed with each other. And the death scene, like you said, it's really good. The axe to the face, I mean, it looks amazing. I mean, the gore effects in this are just top notch. They're really good. And it's got a great decapitation scene. I mean, well, it's sort of a decapitation. I mean, it's by gun, but still, I mean, it's really well done too, in my opinion. I think my slight criticism on this one is only the fact that when that last death happens and the credits roll, I mean, I was thinking, is that it? I felt like they were going somewhere else as well with this. And maybe they're going to add more, and do another one. I don't know. I just, I don't know. I felt like there was going to be more to it. But I think that, it's entertaining. Again, it's very short. And, I think it was pretty fun all the way around. I like the little throwbacks to Jason Lives. But in all honesty, if I had to choose between the two, I would pick the first one because I just felt like it, I don't know. I felt like there was maybe more thought in it, but that doesn't mean I don't like Never Hike in the Snow. I liked it a lot too. So, I mean, I give it thumbs up as well. Like I said, my main criticisms are just the fact that I felt it just kind of ended very abruptly. And, I've never been big into the police presence in horror. I mean, there are exceptions to that rule, but in general, I don't really find the investigating of the murders that thrilling. I prefer the stuff with Jason and, and things like that. So, like I said, I liked it. I like both. I think they were both a lot of fun. I just kind of wanted a little more with the second one. That's all. And those are my thoughts. Straps agrees.
Yeah, it just feels almost rushed. Like, like I said, he struck dirt, so he's going to hurry up and get this one, sent out. But Erik, what did you think of Never Hike in the Snow?
I think I agree a lot with what you both said, particularly Nathan. For me, I mean, the film is so technically accomplished and looks amazing yet again, and that kill with the axe to the mouth is stunning. It's like as good as special effects can be. It's almost KNB quality special effects. I was really, really impressed with that. But for me, the big problem with Never Hike in the Snow, as Nathan said, is that it just ends so abruptly. And, the characters of Tommy and Deputy, whatever his name is, Sheriff Thingy, they're kind of just left hanging, like their characters just disappear. And it's like, what? It's like, because it ends with somebody being killed, and that somebody just felt to me like a secondary character, and then the film ends, and like the film is 31 minutes long, but there's 6 minutes of credits at the end, so it's really only 25 minutes long, so it's very, very short. I just felt kind of, what, that's the end? Like, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, it ended mid-sentence almost. The other thing I didn't like about it was there's a scene where Jason hallucinates seeing his mother and he takes his mask off and it doesn't look that good, and it kind of reminded me of some of the stuff in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 with the ghostly mother and Michael Myers, so I wasn't mad about that. But again, I mean, the gore effects are great. I'm not sure the snow setting is really used to its fullest advantage. I don't think the like, apart from, as Nathan was saying, like seeing the the blood against the pure white snow was kind of interesting for that first kill, but after that, the snow might as well not be there. I'm not sure what the big deal about snow is in the film, but I mean, it's so technically accomplished. And again, as I said, if he's using it kind of as a promo reel, then I think he has really succeeded, because if somebody from Paramount or New Line, again, I can't remember who has the rights, sees this and says, let's give this guy a shot, like with that guy who did Lights Out, that short, and then he was approached to extend it to feature length. I'd be very interested to see the director of the 2 Never Hike Alone movies. I'd like to see him being given a proper script and say, make a 90-minute Friday the 13th movie for us to go out into the cinemas in 2021 or 2022. And I think he could do a really good job on that. This, for me, it felt like, as I said, for me, the biggest problem with the film is just the way it ends. It just, because it has, at its core, I think 5 characters. We see one get killed at the start, and then there's these other 4, and one of them gets killed at the end, and then that's it. And I was like, unless I missed something, did other characters get killed? Like did Mark's mother? When I saw Mark's mother in this film, she's grieving over her missing child. It reminded me of Nathan's they have family and loved ones theory. I thought did that make you upset, Nathan, to see her so sad?
It did, and I felt really bad for her, because I don't really want to see the grieving families. It's sad.
Yeah, but I mean, overall, this one, I certainly didn't enjoy it as much. It felt like, I don't know if you guys ever picked up the special edition DVDs of the Friday the 13th series. They had these bonus features on them called, what were they called? They're called Lost Tales of Camp Blood, which are kind of, I suppose, fan films of a kind. They're these short 5-minute features that are very like the kind of fan films you'd find on YouTube. They're actually on the new Blu-ray set from Scream Factory as well. But they're kind of just, the structureless scenes of people going into the woods and being killed by Jason or a Jason alike. And that's what this kind of felt to me. It didn't feel like a proper short film, because even a short film should have some kind of kick at the end, or a twist, or something, a feeling of completeness at the end it should have. But this one didn't. As I said, it just ends mid-sentence, and that kind of I was taken aback by that, and felt I felt cheated, even though I was watching it for free on YouTube. But I mean, as I said, really technically accomplished, some great little sequences in it, but overall not nearly as enjoyable as the first one.
Before we get to you, Justin, sorry, one of the scenes I was going to mention, I forgot to mention, was Jason in his little shack. He's got his mother's decapitated head, and one thing I was asking is A, how does he know how to look at pictures on a camera? And B, where did he get all these candles? Does he have a Pier 1 account or something? Because he has thousands of candles and he's got them all lit up like a shrine.
And if they're Yankee candles, he'll need to have a pretty penny as well, because they're not cheap.
No. But what did you think about the film, Justin?
I kind of echo what you guys said. Really, I was quite pumped for it, in so much that the snow setting and the opening kill is fantastic. But I think it must be down to do with the budget, because the opening sequence going through the trees with the snow coming down, it looks amazing, and then the opening kill with the character being chased by Jason, who just finds his car but managed to become a cropper, looks brilliant. But I kind of guess the problem was they probably, because as with the first film, it shot over a year. And they were shot at weekends with people. So whether or not it's the same for this, it probably was. Towards the end of the movie, it looked like they'd thrown a few ice cubes about, or some icing sugar on the ground, because there were little clumps of snow, but it wasn't. What I was expecting was going to be like the end of The Shining or the Coldplay movies, where it would be you would be Jason in the blizzard and this kind of thing. Those are all the things that came to mind, and I think the opening kill that worked perfectly. It looks brilliant, but I think the biggest problem, I think you've all hit it nail on the head. It's, to me, the whole idea of this prequel, because it's meant to be set, I think, about 3 months before the first film. It just seems redundant. I don't really understand the point of it, because it doesn't really add anything. to the idea or the mythos of Jason, really, does it? Because what is the point exactly? And it also doesn't make any sense, really, that you've got Tommy Jarvis who turns up and scratches Jason on the hood of the police car. And
I thought you were going to say he comes up and scratches Jason, and I was like, I don't remember any scene where he scratches Jason.
No, but he does that, and he comes across as this kind of unhinged character who says Jason's still out there, and then in the next film he's a happy-go-lucky paramedic who's out in the woods picking up someone who's clearly being attacked by Jason, or so if he was a character from the prequel where he was kind of Jason's still out there, why is he a happy-go-lucky paramedic in the next film?
I thought the stuff with him trying to warn the sheriff, I thought that was like set like after, but the flashback stuff was set before. I could be wrong though. I don't know.
Maybe that's the case.
Well, because the film's kind of so haphazard and not really complete. It's really hard to discern.
I kind of just got the impression that it was, well, my understanding it was a prequel, so it was that everything that was happening in it was kind of 3 months or something before the Never Hike Alone film. That may be wrong, but also the other things it doesn't, for its short running time, it's this kind of, it doesn't really warrant having the character of the mother involved in it. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, what are we trying to do here? You're spending 10 minutes of your Friday the 13th movie with a grieving mother, or a mother who's worried about her lost son, and a sheriff who's kind of, kind of character development is all very well. And I think one of the things that's been said about the Friday the 13th films, they don't have character development, to their detriment perhaps. But, the flip side of that is why you're having 10 minutes of character development in a 25-minute Jason movie. It doesn't really make any sense, if that makes sense. And like yourselves, it finished, and I thought, is that it? What exactly is it adding to? If it's setting it up for the next film, if it was saying, "Oh, Jason's back in Camp Crystal Lake," or it did something that it was kind of saying, but it didn't really. So I didn't really understand. I would have preferred to be honest, seen a sequel, which, as we've mentioned, there is potentially these Never Hike Alone 2, Never Hike Again, is in pre-production. Whether or not that sees light of day, I don't know. But it's the cameo by Tom Matthews just seemed like he turned up for one night, and that was superfluous as well. It didn't really add anything to it. So it was a bit of a missed opportunity, really, as far as I'm concerned. It looks great, it's worth a watch, but I didn't really understand what the point of it was, really.
Yeah, the Never Hike Alone at least has like a 3-act structure, where this one feels like it has like a half of an act and then like a 3/4 or like an eighth of an act going on. It's not cohesive at all. It's just very disappointing. I was like you, Justin. I was thinking, oh my God, this is going to be Jason, and he's going to be set. It's going to be set at Camp Crystal Lake, and it's just going to be buried in snow, and there's going to be like, a caravan of horny teenagers, and they're going to just pump up what they couldn't do in the first film, and that's just not what we get. And I was kind of disappointed. I mean, like Erik said, it is free, so the only thing you're really wasting is your time, and it's only 30 minutes, so it's not a big loss. But I don't know, it just wasn't for me.
I'm just going to mention one thing I didn't mention before, but just a lead on from the Friday the 13th movies, and obviously we're waiting for one to go into production if they ever come to an agreement over the copyright. Is did you guys hear about 13 Fanboy, the film by Deborah Voorhees, who was in Friday the 13th Part 5?
No, what is this?
She's directed, apparently it's completed, and the synopsis is: former Scream Queens from the Friday the 13th series are hunted by a real-life killer who doesn't understand that it's all make-believe. And it's directed by Deborah Voorhees, and it has appearances by, amongst others, Adrian King, Tracy Savage, Dee Wallace, Lapa Lincoln, and Corey Feldman. So apparently, on IMDb, it said it's completed. So
sounds like they stole that idea you had from like all the survivors.
I mean, that's been knocking around for years. But
No, Justin, what you're saying is that Alice is back. That's what I'm hearing here.
Oh, here we go.
Because I don't think it's they're all playing themselves. A bit of a new Nightmare twist to it. The idea that
Nathan was like, I finally got supporting evidence. And Justin's like, nope, I'm going to shut that shit down right now.
How dare you pull the rug out from under me?
Well, no, I think this is kind of like a bit of a new Nightmare thing where these are from what I can tell, because it's a little bit unclear, but I think it's as a real life slasher is going after the actresses on people who appeared in the movies, the Friday the 13th movies. So, but be interesting because Deborah Voorhees is she's directed it, and she's going to be in the film as well. So it's be interesting to see when that comes out. So it's not a fan film, but as I imagine, given the with the coronavirus outbreak, although to be honest, I'm not putting it to film down. I'm not sure if it's a film that would have got a wide cinema release, but I know a lot of films have their release schedule have been disrupted.
I read that they were trying to get it released this month to get it in for Oscar contention for next year.
Well, it could be the case. Who knows?
Or maybe I dreamt that. Sorry.
Well, I dreamt once one of your jokes of the week made me laugh. So let's see if dreams do come true.
It's my joke of the week. It's so great and fantastic.
So I spent an hour the other night on YouTube watching a movie of somebody having cold air blown on their face. It was the worst fan film I've ever seen.
I actually kind of like that one.
That was quite good, actually.
Yeah, that's good.
It's one of your better ones, Erik.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I'm getting closer to laughing.
Did you crack a smile or anything, Justin?
My lips quivered a little bit.
Justin really is the clowns never laughed before type.
He totally is. Beanstalks never grew.
It is true. So, okay, well, that was Friday the 13th, the fan films. Celebrating Friday the 13th. So go and watch some and let us know what you think. But we have some feedback, don't we, I think?
Well, we got some listener.
What's the listener? What do listeners think first?
So for Never Hike Alone, we got 47 votes, and 64% of those votes enjoyed this one. 19% were neutral, and 17% disliked it. Out of 38 votes for Never Hike in the Snow, 56% enjoyed that film, 32% were neutral, and 12% disliked it. For Never Hike Alone, our listener of the week is Walter Beepus, and he writes, I've not seen many fan films, but this is pretty excellent and better than some of the actual entries. Likeable protagonist, and when Jason shows up, the cat and mouse pursuit is very effective. Jason is very intimidating in this. And for Never Hike in the Snow, our listener of the week is, and I love this name, by the way, Ingo Dirkschneider. That's an awesome name. He writes, so much better than Never Hike Alone. I don't agree with him there, but he says, not overlong, not suffering from an intro that is longer than the rest of the film, literally going straight for the kill. Of course, the acting could be better, and the story doesn't quite add up, but there's some clever storytelling, some actual suspense, and great gore. And so you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, nearly all podcatchers, and you can support the show, as Justin said earlier, on Patreon. And our email address is info or feedback at thehysteriacontinues.net.
Excellent. Well, thank you to everyone. So some feedback. Who's got some?
I have one.
Okay,
so this is from Rob Balducci. And Rob says, Hi Justin, Joseph, Erik and Nathan. I first wanted to thank you for reading my previous email on your Nothing Underneath episode. It truly made my day. I did end up getting a copy of that Savage Water DVD with your commentary. It wasn't cheap, unlike Savage Water itself, which is very cheap. But he says he can't wait to hear it. I can't remember how good or bad our Savage Water
Let us know what you think of the Mahmood character.
Mahmood, he's our favourite, yes. He goes on to say, since I have been so entertained by your podcast, I have tailored my annual October horror watching month on mainly films you have covered. It makes choosing films much easier, and there are so many to pick from. I have been rediscovering old classics that I haven't seen for many years, like Happy Birthday to Me and April Fool's Day, and I've been finally getting around to films that have been on my to-watch list forever. Final Exam, which you gentlemen liked way more than I did. And also discovering films I was not familiar with, like the aforementioned Nothing Underneath, which I loved, and Terror on Tour, which, like Joseph, I thought was a steaming pile. I plan on continuing watching slasher films long after Halloween has come and gone, because your podcast has become such an important part of my week. Lastly, I wanted to briefly mention your Dark Night of the Scarecrow episode. I have been a huge fan of this film since it was finally released on DVD in 2010, and it was great to hear the brilliant Amanda Reyes break the film down in a way only she can. I'll admit that I got a little teary-eyed when she told you guys how much your podcast meant to her during these unpredictable times, mainly because it mirrored my feelings of the show. Thanks again for everything you do, from Rob Balducci. Well, thank you indeed, Rob. And I've been enjoying Amanda Reyes' podcast, which features our own Nathan Johnson, and the latest episode has Justin Kurzweil.
And apparently I'm supposed to be on in January. I'm not sure what we're covering yet, but I will be on there at some point.
Excellent. Yes, and I was on it back in probably the start of the summer, was it? Talking about Shannon Doherty movies. So yeah.
Fun times.
Yes. So Rob didn't like Final Exam or Terror on Tour.
Aw.
Well, here's the thing. If we get Dan Budnick on this show as a guest, then basically we can just call the Made for TV Mayhem our sister show, because we would all have been on each other's show.
Yeah, because we're like Beverly Hills 90210 and they're Melrose Place.
Yeah.
Crossovers.
Excellent. Well, I'd echo that about Amanda's podcast and Daniel's podcast. It's and Nathan's podcast. The one he cheats on us on. It's definitely worth a listen. Worthy of your time. So, well, thank you to Rob. Nathan, do you have any feedback?
No, I don't.
Okay. What about you, Joseph, or have I just the one you sent me?
Just the ones I've sent out.
Okay, right. Well, this one is from the Hobgoblin. He says, "Hello, gentlemen. Today I write to inform you that your most recent episode covering Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is the best episode ever. Nathan is a tour de force in this one, never once boring, and the shade thrown rivals even the best untucked moments on RuPaul's Drag Race. I've listened to it twice already and laughed just as hard both times, even though I knew what was coming. I think the part that startled me most is Nathan ever so casually naming off his fellow co-host's preferred sexual positions, starting with the perfect rhubarb tone of voice saying, 'What makes you so sure that I'm a bottom?' Before I ramble on too long, just understand that this episode is a historic one. To this listener, at least. Yours truly, the Hobgoblin." So, yes, I sort of said there may have been some feedback on that episode. So,
Joseph, I can't believe you let that comment stay. You could have edited it out.
No, I said I wasn't going to edit anything. So,
and what kills me is that I was completely blackout drunk, guys. I really do not remember that podcast. So going back and listening to it, because I wasn't going to it first, but then curiosity got the better of me, and going back and listening to it is just like listening to something that I don't remember doing.
Well, what's funny is like by the time you'd start to pass out, I was slowly catching up with you. So I was almost to the point where you were at the beginning of the show, at the end of the show. So it's kind of like, it was like a perfect bookend of the show.
Yes. Well, that was, the drunk cast, and they will be few and far between, but we never say never. Well, is anything left to say apart from what we're covering next time?
That's Nathan's pick. So, Nathan?
Yes, we are going to the Sea Sucker residence. We're going to go see Beverly Sutphin in Serial Mom and the amazing Dottie Hinkle.
Can you say the P word, Nathan?
I've never said the P word out loud, let alone written it down.
Are those pussy willows?
What did you just say?
Pussy willows, Nathan. Yeah, I got a couple of pieces. Like a couple of people have asked, "Why are you covering Serial Mom?" And I told them, I'm like, "Well, we kind of consider that John Waters' take on the slasher film, and it is really so."
Yeah,
I mean, there's stabbings, there's chase scenes. I mean, it's not your traditional slasher movie, but I say, we've done tenuous picks before.
Yes, and the one I bring up all the time, Rabid Grannies.
The Terminator is a tenuous pick.
Well, yeah.
No, Rabid Grannies is a tenuous pick.
It's tenuouser.
Yeah, it's tenuouser. It's the tenuousest of them all.
They use axes and stuff in Rabid Grannies, slasher type weapons. They even slash people. So see?
But they're grannies that are rabid.
I don't have it anymore, but I wish I had my take on Rabid Grannies. I did one called Vicious Grannies, where Hazel Tankersley and her sister Jean.
That would be worth watching.
Of course, there's no makeup effects. They just start killing people out of nowhere.
I think you just
Are Joyce and Deborah in it?
Yeah, Joyce is not. Deborah is. Fran is in it.
Are they selfish relatives?
No, in this one, it's
generous relatives in this one.
I think you just gave Erik an orgasm, Nathan.
Yeah, I think I did.
But Erik, I'm not in it.
Doesn't matter as long as Hazel's in it and Jean and Deborah.
Yeah, they're in it, but I can't find it. I don't know where it's at.
Oh, it's like Friday the 13th Part 2's lost missing footage. It'll surface in 40 years.
Maybe the guy who has the uncut footage for Friday the 13th Part 2 has a copy of it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, let's wrap this up because we've got to go and record our extra special. Well, extra special, of course, if you listen to them, Patreon episode on the plumber. So, but yeah, we're back next time with Beverly Sutphin and Dottie Hinkle, and you're all invited to Serial Mom. So, what are we playing out with?
Well, to keep with the never theme, guys, I'm never going to give you up. Yes, we're going to rickroll our audience with Rick Astley's infamous tune, Never Gonna Give You Up.
Oh, which Justin said they were dancing to in one of the fan films.
Yeah, so there's some synchronicity for you. Or synchronicity, or whatever that word is.
Perfect. Okay, right. Well, we'll catch you next time on The Hysteria Continues. So thank you for listening, and say goodbye to the good people.
Stay classy, everybody.
Bye, selfish relatives.
Yes, goodbye.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down.